As we wrap up 2023, it's time to talk about the motorcycles that we've ridden this year and our top 5 favorites.
Yeah, so we've put together a list of the best bikes in our minds that we've had the chance to throw a leg over this year. We're gonna go through, show you some of the footage we got of riding these bikes throughout the year and crank through what our favorite bikes this year were.
Now, for number 5, this is a motorcycle that isn't really new. It's kind of been around since 2018. They've made a couple changes to it over the years, but we got a chance to spend some time with the BMW R1250 RS, and it was just a fantastic motorcycle.
Super smooth, it doesn't wear you out at all. You can do long rides, and it's a good looking bike too.
Pretty sporty ride. It's a bike that you can ride pretty aggressively, but like you said, it doesn't really beat you up. It doesn't feel overly stiff. Pretty powerful, 136 horsepower, 105 pound-feet of torque. It's a heavy motorcycle. It's about 560 pounds, so it's definitely not light, but once you get moving, you don't feel that so much. But yeah, I mean, it's a sharp looking motorcycle. I wouldn't necessarily call it classically beautiful, but it's got a really nice tech suite, and really, once you throw a leg over it, you just don't want to stop riding.
No, and that Boxer really sells it for me. That 1254cc Boxer, it feels like just a super well-engineered timepiece or something.
For all that engineering and nice tech suite and being a bike that rides really well, it's also priced accordingly. These start around $16,000, so not inexpensive.
No, definitely not inexpensive, and BMW's kind of the king of packages and add-ons and all kinds of things.
You can crank up quite a bit from that starting price.
Yeah.
Now for number 4 is a motorcycle that Alex went on the program for, and I wasn't expecting it to appear on this list. I haven't had a chance to ride this bike, so tell me about this.
Yeah, this is the XR150L, and Case definitely was shocked when I told him I wanted to put this bike on the list. This is a 149cc carbureted, air-cooled single-cylinder bike, 5-speed transmission, and it's all new for this year in the States, but this is a bike that's actually been around for a really long time overseas, which is part of the reason they were able to introduce it here in the US and keep the price so low.
Yeah, and it's cool that it's such an inexpensive bike. I mean, it's MSRP $2,791, and after freight and destination, you're looking at about $3,091. Of course, there's other fees that you would have to deal with going through a dealership, but it's suffice to say it's an inexpensive motorcycle, which is nice, but I mean, I haven't ridden it. I would imagine that because it's so inexpensive that there's got to be some drawbacks to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a great highway bike. Like, you can get on the highway and take one exit with it. It's got no tech on it, but that's not what you buy this for. I mean, I was riding this bike out in California with 10 other people that were also on identical bikes, and it doesn't matter what you're on. Anything that's slow and small in a group of like more than 5 is just amazingly fun. So that's part of the reason I had such a blast on this bike, but I think that's a fair point because you could buy 3 of these for the price of some other dual sports and have that epic time on your property with friends. So
yeah. That's true. That's an overlooked item because a lot of times we'll talk about motorcycles being good as beginner bikes, and this is definitely one of those kind of bikes, but there's a lot to be said for the fun you can have not really caring about your motorcycle because it's so cheap, even if you're an experienced rider, versus you being on a bigger, more powerful, more expensive bike and having to be more careful with it because it is a bigger investment.
I'm all for affordable bikes. I think anything that's, under $3,000, street legal, has passenger accommodations. How can you not like that? So.
Now, for number 3 is a very different motorcycle from both the bikes that we've discussed so far, and this is another bike that Alex went on the program for. It's the Kawasaki ZX4RR.
Yeah, and it's a very different bike than what we just talked about, but it's on this list for some of the same reasons. So this is kind of an all-new class. It's a brand new engine that Kawasaki made for this bike, 399cc inline 4. So, you might think, kind of like a Ninja 400, but way more aggressive seating position and riding position. This revs way higher than a Ninja 400, and the red line's like 16,000 RPM on this, and a good amount of power, 56 horsepower right out of the box, and some of the overseas models, or here in the US with a tune, you can get an extra like 20 horsepower out of this little motor.
Yeah, when you also get a lot nicer components than what you get on other 400 bikes. I mean, it's better suspension, better brakes, better tech suite. it's just a much better bike. Now, at $9,699 MSRP, that is a lot of money for a 400cc bike, which immediately puts it out of the running for, I think, most people out there. But again, there's something to be said for, especially on the track, a very lightweight, small motorcycle that you can ride to its full capability versus a 600 or especially a 1000cc bike that you're afraid to fully wring out. I mean, let's be honest, even because you ride at the track a lot, how many of the people at the track that you ride with that are riding leader bikes are actually fully
barely
riding
any? Probably nobody. I mean, yeah, you got to be a lunatic to do that.
Yeah. To ride the full potential of a 1000cc bike on a track takes a really good rider.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot more people out there that think they're that rider than people who actually are that rider.
I mean, I think most people think they can push this ZX4RR to the absolute limit. Most people can't even do that on a 400.
Yeah.
So
that's us included, by the way.
Exactly.
We're not saying we're better than it.
No, by no means can I push a ZX4RR to the limits on a track, but I can get closer to the limit than on a 600 or a leader bike.
Yeah.
Same thing as the XR150. Half the reason this is so fun is you get a bunch of slower race bikes on a track together, and it's just an absolute blast. This is a bike that I don't want to spend 10 grand on right now, but when the prices start to come down and they hit the used market, this is one I'm probably going to want to add to my garage.
But yeah, I think there's still just plenty of people out there that can't get past that much money for a 400, and that's also valid.
Yeah, and hopefully, I mean, like I said, this is kind of a new class, so hopefully it takes off, other brands start to make bikes, and then with competition, you get competitive pricing.
Yeah.
So there we go.
Now, for number 2, this is a motorcycle I went on the program for actually in Spain, in Valencia, Spain, which was an incredible trip. And this is the Ducati Scrambler. It's the new generation of the Ducati Scrambler. And there's a couple things about this bike that land it on this list. For one, the first thing you notice about it is the way that this motorcycle looks. It's stunning. It's a really pretty bike.
Yeah, and one of my favorite things about the Scrambler is how many different flavors you can get it in. I mean, there's a ton of different models of it, first of all, but then within each model, you get kind of different bits and different color schemes. So, you could have 6, 7, 8 of these lined up at a dealership and they all look completely different, which is really cool.
Yeah, and it's cool too that they have on the Icon, which is the base model, the starting model, they've got those swappable panels so you can change the color of your bike, which is a really cool thing to be able to do. I will say, from getting up close and personal with those panels, I was interested to see how it felt like they fit, and you can tell that it's not a permanently fixed part of the bike. So in some aspects, it feels a little chintzy, but just walking up to it and looking at it visually, it looks fantastic. This is a really sharp motorcycle from all angles. Proportions are right. The design is right. They did the retro thing perfectly. The other thing about this bike is that it's a smaller motorcycle. It's 803 cc's, 73 horsepower, 48 pound-feet of torque. So it's not a powerhouse of a bike, but it is an L-twin, so that's a motor that can make a really good noise. And I love the fact that curb weight on this bike is actually less than the old Scrambler. It's 408 pounds.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. This looks like a heavy bike, and we had a long-term Scrambler desert sled for a while. I really liked that bike.
Yeah.
As far as all the bikes on this list go, if you're looking for the one that's going to turn heads in a parking lot, this is the one to go for.
Absolutely. And, it's not an inexpensive motorcycle for what it is. It's $11,000 starting price for this Icon. So there's plenty of cheaper bikes out there on the market, but you do get some nice components. You get Brembo brakes, KYB suspension, which is pretty decent. Not a ton of adjustability in that suspension, but you get a respectable tech suite, 4.3-inch TFT, which isn't huge, but it's a pretty decent looking screen. So it's an all-around very appealing, fun motorcycle to ride. It's got a couple of drawbacks, as do all vehicles, but this was a motorcycle that just ticked a lot of boxes for me and that I would enjoy to spend a lot of time on, especially around the city, pitch it into turns, ring out that L-twin, and when you park it, you're still enjoying it because you get to look back at it and see that beautiful bike.
Yeah, just one of those bikes that's kind of good at everything and especially good at looking good and making you feel happy. We talk about this all the time. Big important part of buying a motorcycle is having something in the garage that forces you to go out into the garage and get excited to get that riding gear on. It's important that the bike calls you, and
and this one definitely does.
Yeah. Moving on to the last one on our list is the Yamaha Tracer 9 GT Plus. So a couple things with this bike. First of all, the naming got a little different. I feel like they've changed the name on this bike like 8 different times, but it's now the Tracer 9 GT Plus. It has the 890cc CP3, the triple from Yamaha. And some of the new things it got for this year are KYB semi-active suspension, adaptive cruise control with automatic braking actually, Garmin GPS integration on a new 7-inch TFT screen, and a linked unified braking system as well. Just overall, like the BMW we started this list with, just a really easy bike to ride, something that's comfortable all day long and sporty as hell. It just, for me, checked all the boxes.
Yeah, it's really a do-it-all motorcycle. It's definitely not visually the most exciting bike that we've ridden this year, but once you throw a leg over it, it's hard not to feel the fact that it can do a little bit of everything. It's got a really nice tech suite, really nice components. The CP3 engine has always been a great motor.
Do long haul rides, do sporty rides. I used to have the older Tracer 900. I took it to a go-kart track once and did a track day on it. So not that that's the perfect bike to do it on, but yeah, I mean, it just does everything really well. And the tech was cool. I mean, having a motorcycle like brake for you when you're approaching a car is a really odd feeling. And I'm a tech nerd, so I have fun playing around with all that new stuff. And yeah, it was just a bike that I didn't need to put a whole lot of thought into riding. And sometimes on these ride programs we go on, it's 8 hours of riding out in the sun, you're baking, trying to get videos done. It's, it can turn into a really kind of long day sometimes. Not complaining at all. I mean, we're definitely very fortunate to do it, but it can be stressful and tiring sometimes to be on a bike for 8 hours a day when you're also having to review that motorcycle. And this is one of the bikes I rode this year where we pulled back into the hotel at the end of the long ride, and I could have been going for hours longer. So, yeah.
Now, if we were to do these lists of top 5 bikes this year individually, our list would look very different. And I'm sure for you guys out there, the list would be very different as well. So let us know down in the comments below, what are your top 5 motorcycles that came out this year? Maybe things that you've ridden, even if it's not necessarily something that's all new for this year. And there's still plenty of bikes that came out this year that we haven't had a chance to ride yet. So hopefully coming into 2024, next year, there's some more of those bikes that we'll get a chance to throw a leg over and make more videos about.
Yeah, there you go. I also want to know what you bought this year, because I bought something this year, a couple months ago actually, that I haven't even told you guys about yet. So video on that coming up pretty soon. But yeah, let us know down in the comments. Check out alltfl.com. See you in the next one.